Welcome to the first episode of Lost Inside, the podcast. I'm your host, Max Power. Today we're going to be talking about free hugs. It's something that I do, that I wear. I wear shirts, I have buttons, and pretty much anywhere and everywhere I go, you'll see me wearing something that says free hugs. And it's a picture of Charlie Brown and Snoopy hugging each other. And then it says lostinside.info underneath. The reason why I started this was the free hugs movement has been around for quite a while. Kind of started in Australia, gained some momentum, and then it died out. But that's where I heard about it. I was of the mindset that the people that were holding up the signs was the hot-looking guy with the six-pack abs, not wearing a t-shirt, holding up the sign that said free hugs, and then he's getting all the girls to hug him. And then there's other pictures of regular guys with, let's just say, dad bods, holding up the same sign, and they were not getting any attention whatsoever. So that was where I was with the whole free hugs thing. Yeah, unless you're really good looking or something like that, nobody's really going to care. They don't want to hug you. It's a double standard, two-way street sort of thing. But for me, it changed one day. I was in downtown Houston along our dirty bayou. I was taking some pictures. There, you can find homeless people. You can find wildlife like ducks and geese, and there's all sorts of things right there downtown along the bayou. Me being an outdoor photographer, I went down there just to get some pictures, and I'm on the edge of the bayou taking a picture of this geese that was flaring up all its feathers, kind of peacocking. It turned out to be some pretty good pictures that I snapped. But as I was snapping those pictures, this guy had walked by and bumped me, and I nearly fell into the bayou with my camera. I will admit that I have a short temper. Sometimes I can pick a fight. I don't like to fight, but when you make me angry, that's one thing that does come out. So I was pretty upset. This guy just bumped me, didn't say I'm sorry, didn't apologize, anything. And he just kept on walking at a pretty firm, fast pace. So I called out to him and he kept going. So I started trying to power walk a little bit to catch up to this guy, because he was sort of power walking and walking with a purpose. But I didn't notice that at the time. So I finally catch up to the guy. I put my hand on his shoulder to stop him. And something inside me said, hug this guy. And I'm not somebody who just hugs total strangers. Well, I am now. I did not at the time do anything like that. I was not a very hugging person. I was not somebody who showed public displays of affection. My anxiety kept me from doing things like that. But this little voice inside me took over. And when the guy turned around, I just hugged him. And I was expecting that he was going to push me off, come back at me, curse at me, be angry. A guy just grabbing another guy and hugging him for no reason, no warning, no nothing. But to my surprise, this guy hugged me back. And he held on tight. And I decided I'm not going to let go until he lets go. Now, I don't know how long it was, but it was a pretty long hug. I could hear him crying. When he finally did let go, he turned around and ran in the other direction. I didn't think any more of it. I went about finishing my day of taking pictures. I got some really good pictures that day and just went home and went about my business. About 2 years later, I'm at a mall working, and this guy walks up to me and asks me if I remember who he was. I honestly see hundreds of faces every day, and they're constantly changing. So I had no clue who this guy was, and I apologized. I said, "No, I don't know who you are. I'm sorry. Obviously, you know who I am. Would you please refresh my memory of how we met?" And he hugged me and said that I changed his life. I saved his life. We talked for a little bit. Long story short, I come to find out that he was on his way to jump off of one of the highway bridges down into the traffic below and commit suicide. He was at the end of his rope. He was ready to end it all. And I've been there before, so I know how that feels. But it was the fact that a total stranger cared enough to hug him, and he was able to gain human contact. You know, we live in a society where people are on their phones and their social media. They do everything through a computer screen or a phone screen. There is no face-to-face anymore. People don't know how to interact anymore. It's a real problem that we as a society have created with social media. We don't know how to interact with people anymore. We don't have that human contact, that personal connection, where we talk to people and we get to know people, just total strangers, and get to know them. And we all need that from time to time. You never know what somebody's going through, how their day is. And I've been guilty of it too, of having a bad day and taking it out on somebody else and probably making their day feel worse. And I'll be honest, when I get home, that stays with me and it makes me actually feel worse. So if I've ever actually done that to somebody, and I know that I have, I honestly do apologize. But the fact that my hug, total stranger, that this guy needed it and didn't know how to ask, that was what got me. He didn't know how to ask his family or his friends for a hug because he was a guy, and here he was a Hispanic guy. So this being July, being Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, that's another thing that we need to address. You know, growing up, I was told the same things, that, hey, you don't show your emotions. You're a guy. You're supposed to be manly. You don't do these things. It's not normal. Even no matter what you're feeling, you bury it deep inside. You suck it up and you just keep going. To a point, that is correct. You can't let these things be excuses for everything that's happening. You know, life is not fair. Nobody ever said life is fair. It's not written, life is fair. Life will fuck you up. I'm sorry, but it will. Now, what do we do with that information? How are we going to be human beings towards somebody else? How are we going to show empathy? A lot of times we just don't do that. We don't care about what a total stranger thinks or how they feel or what's going on. So that got me thinking of starting this free hugs. I remembered hearing about it before. So I found the picture of Snoopy hugging Charlie Brown, and that's the picture that I use. I put on it free hugs. At first I had a plain black t-shirt with a green ribbon, and green is the color of mental health awareness. And it just said free on one side of the ribbon and hugs on the other side. And I wore that shirt everywhere. This was before I came up with the Snoopy shirt. And I used to have people that would tell me, "Oh, you're just trying to hug girls. You won't hug a guy. A guy won't hug another guy, a stranger, for no reason." And I would tell people, if you honestly truly need a hug, I'll give you one. And I would get these sneered, ugly looking faces that were like, "Yeah, right," and walk away. And I just chalk it up, the hug isn't for you. So I decided that I'm not going to let that get to me. I'm not going to let other people dictate if I hug somebody or not. If somebody wants a hug, this shirt tells them they don't have to ask. All they have to do is take the hug. I won't question them. I won't say a word. I won't make them, "Hey, talk to me." Because a lot of times when we're feeling at that point, we're at that breaking point of we want to end it all. We don't want to talk to people. But that human contact will help people to feel that emotion versus telling that emotion. We're going to take a quick break and we'll talk about that some more. Lost Inside. Welcome back. You're listening to Lost Inside, the podcast. I'm your host, Max Power. When we last left off, I just met the guy who told me that my hug saved his life. Now, from there, I told you that I have two different t-shirts. One was an all-black shirt. It just says, right in the middle has the green ribbon for the mental health awareness, and then free hugs, free on one side, hugs on the other. And then I had that for about a year before I came up with the Snoopy Charlie Brown one. And that one I wore everywhere, all the time. I even wore it on a cruise where we went to one of the shows on the cruise, and one of the guys that was on stage could see my shirt and called me out and was like, "Is that true?" I was like, "Anytime, anywhere." And he hops down from the stage, comes down, and gives me a hug. From there, I started making buttons. I used to wear it on my uniform to work. Everybody around on property knew me as the free hugs guy. And I got hugs from everybody, men and women. It didn't matter, and I don't discriminate in that case. Fast forward a few years, I was in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We were there for a week on sort of a mini vacation. I had to fly back from DC back to Houston because my vacation ended sooner than everyone else's. I had to go to work, and then I was starting class the very next day for the summer program. So I'm at the airport, and TSA is actually just having fun with this because I'm in a wheelchair and they have to pat me down, and they're just kind of making fun of it and laughing about it, having to pat me down and say, "Oh, just consider this a hug." I was like, do what you guys got to do. I just need to get to the terminal and get on the flight. And then somebody else came over and took over. And after I was done with my pat down and everything, started wheeling me through the terminal to my gate. And he's telling me how he suffers from depression, and that when we get to the gate, if I would not mind hugging him because he was sort of having a bad morning. And I was like, "No problem, man. I know the other guys were making fun of it, but it's real. I don't wear this shirt just to to poke fun of people. I mean, those who really need it will see it and know what it means and will get their free hug. So the guy gets me to the terminal, gets me to my gate, give him a big old hug. He thanked me and walked off. Well, my flight kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. Now I'm 3 hours delayed. I'm wondering if I'm going to make it back to Houston in time because, like I said, I had to go to work that night and I was supposed to be landing in Houston by 1 p.m. and here it is now 3 p.m. in DC and we still haven't taken off yet. So we're sitting, everybody who's supposed to be on this plane is just getting angry and frustrated, sitting and trying to lay down and relax. And you know how terminals are, and the gates and the seats are so uncomfortable, and everybody's trying to fight for the one power outlet so their phone doesn't die, and all this and that. While I'm sitting there, this guy keeps coming by me and just keeps giving me like the mean stare, just keeps looking at me, and he just seemed angry and upset. I wasn't going to call him out on it. I wasn't going to say anything about what you're staring at, why you keep mad dogging me, things of that stuff, because I grew up in the hood. That's one thing that you didn't let slide. If somebody was mad dogging you, you had to call them out on it. Otherwise, it could end up bad for you. So I didn't want to start anything. I just figured this guy's having a bad day, whatever it is. I'm just going to ignore it. Kind of find out, yes, he is going to be on my flight. I was like, okay, well, hopefully we're not sitting next to each other or anything like that. But while we're in line again, they called us up to check our tickets again. He comes and tells me that he doesn't think what I'm doing is right. He thinks that I'm mocking him. And I was like, are you feeling okay today? And he's like, I don't appreciate you mocking me with that shirt. I said, I'm not mocking you. I had no idea who you are or anything of that sort. But it's like, dude, if you need a hug, man, come on in. I'm not gonna stop you. I'm not mocking you, and I'm sorry that you feel that way, but it's genuine. And he just keeps pacing back and forth in front of me like a the best way I can say is like a wolf, just pacing back and forth, trying to find the weakness before he attacks. Trying to decide what his plan of action is going to be. I'm like, I'm here, dude, if you need the hug. And finally, he does hug me. And I could feel this whole weight just like lifted off of him. And he said thank you. He went back to sit down. I was about 3 people away from getting my ticket checked. I got my ticket checked, and they told us it'd be about another 15 minutes before we start boarding. So I'm trying to get all my stuff ready. I'm flying by myself. So I go and sit down, and this guy gets up and he walks over to me and sits next to me and says that he was feeling very suicidal, that there's all sorts of things that were happening in his life, all hitting him at the same time. And he just felt he couldn't bear it. He felt like he couldn't go on anymore. And something about that hug just lifted his spirits, made him feel better. We talked. 15 minutes turned into 30 minutes. Yeah, they didn't board us like they said they were. Finally, we get on board. I'm towards the front of the plane. He's towards the back of the plane. But as he walks past me, he thanked me again. And we went our separate ways. But he did tell me that saved his life. He was on that breaking point, and I personally have been there. I've been there 4 times. So I know and understand what that's like. Um, so I consider that two people that I've saved by giving free hugs. Um, because you never know what somebody's going through. You never know where what they're thinking, what their breaking point is. We're all hanging by a very thin string sometimes. And we need that human contact. We need to know that anybody cares. Um, Now, me personally, I view suicide a lot differently than most people view it, but on the same side, I know what it's like to be there, to be scared, because it does take a lot of strength to actually go through with that act. And it's not that you're scared of dying, you're scared of what you're going to leave behind, and the emotions that you're going through at that point of why you're thinking that this is the answer. It's very downhearted, and it's very dark and a very cold place to be. But we'll talk more about that when we come back. We're going to take another short break. Welcome back to Lost Inside the podcast. I'm your host, Max Power. So we just finished talking about the second person who felt completely better, and proven why I give hugs and I promote hugs and say free hugs. The bottom line premises is when somebody needs a hug and they see that free hugs, and they see that the character of Charlie Brown and Snoopy hugging, it lets them know that they can come and get a hug from me without question. I'm not going to demand that you talk to me. I'm not going to make any demands whatsoever. If you need a hug and then walk away, then that's what you need, and I will be happy to provide it. When I give these buttons out to people and let them know, hey, free hugs, this is exactly what it means. So if you wear the shirt or you wear the button, don't be surprised if somebody does come up and give you a hug or ask for a hug. So one of the things I want to leave you with, actually two thoughts. But the first one is I have a pamphlet that I pass out about my organization, Lost Inside. It's just a brief thing of what we do or what I do, why I do what I do. But on the back it says 5 key facts about hugs. Number 1, hugging increases oxytocin in the body that reduces stress and lowers blood pressure. Number 2, hugging can stimulate the brain to release dopamine, the feel-good hormone. Number 3, hugs can reveal different levels of affection. A person usually tends to hold their body against a person they care most about, or somebody that they trust really well. We call those tight hugs. Number 4, hugs can cure depression, loneliness, and increases security, trust, and self-esteem. Usually one of those tight hugs, more than just an embrace. An embrace is one thing, but a tight hug is something completely different. And it does make you feel better. It does, you feel like you're trusting someone, your self-esteem increases. So all these 4 facts are actually true and have been medically proven. And number 5, and I feel actually is the most important reason, hugs are free. So with that said, I mentioned tight hugs. Here's a short little poem that I wrote about the tight hug, because like I said, I willingly give hugs to people who need them, but every once in a while, I need one. I need it to make myself feel better, to fight the urges that I'm fighting. So this poem is just called Tight. Tight. When I hug you tight, my soul is actually crying. Life is dragging me under, no matter how hard I'm trying. Darkness surrounds me, deeper into the abyss I fall. That's why I hug you tight. I'm trying not to end it all. And that's very true for me. Um, when I give somebody a hug and I start squeezing tightly, um, that that is what's going on with me. I've had some people say, sometimes you just give a regular hug, and sometimes you squeeze and act like you don't want to let go. And I've had one person thought that I was being possessive at the time of not wanting to let go, and they kind of felt uncomfortable. And I apologize for that, but in all honesty, at the time that happened, when this person mentioned this to me, I was going down that dark rabbit hole. Those emotions were starting to creep in and creep in slowly. And even though I know and recognize the signs myself of these things, I don't like to call my depressive states episodes, or my bipolar state episodes, mainly because I'm not a sitcom for you to watch. I'm not something that you're just going to sit by and watch at your convenience. I'm not an episode. And to me, they feel more like storms. Here in Texas, we get some pretty big storms coming, and when they hit, they do hit hard. And we definitely get hurricanes, but in between, we will have some nasty storms. And like any big storm, you can feel the change in the air. You can smell the water in the air getting stronger. You can smell and feel the air changing. You can feel the storm building. You can see it coming your way. Clouds start getting darker and darker. Everything else feels normal, but you can feel that change coming. You know it's going to come. You know it's going to hit you. You know it's going to hit you hard. It's going to downpour. It's going to dump buckets of water. It's going to just be a huge, huge storm. But the storm doesn't last. It moves on. It goes away. And in the wake, there's debris left behind. There's tree branches that fall. There's trash that is all over the place. The storm comes through, winds blowing, making a lot of noise, and then it calms down again. And all you can do is go outside and pick up the debris and put things where they belong. And to me, that's what these episodes are. They're storms. I call them storms. I refer to them as afflictions and storms because that's what happens. They come through and they hit me, and they hit me hard, and it's just left for me, when things calm down, to pick up the pieces. And sometimes I have to do it alone, and sometimes I need the encouragement. I need the help. Even though I know the biggest lie I tell myself is nobody else understands, I know that's not true. I know other people understand, just as you may feel that nobody understands you or feels your pain. But believe me, I do. Others do. We know what you're going through, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to bridge, that gap between our caregivers and those of us going through these emotions. It is hard, but together we can do it. Just by talking about it, that helps with the cleanup. That helps with picking up the debris that's left behind from our storm. Some storms are small, some storms are big, but they come through anyways, and they leave their little wake of destruction. And depending on how badly the storm is will depend on the amount of debris left behind. So talk about it. Talk with me. Talk with your neighbor, your family, anybody. If you have a pet, you can even talk to your pet. They are great at just listening, and they love you unconditional, and not just because you're the one feeding them. They will love you and protect you and be there for you no matter what. So that's it. That's our first show. I hope you enjoyed the show. I have in the works many things to come. On our next show, I will be broadcasting an interview that I did with my daughter. So look forward to that, and many more to come. If you feel that you might want to be a guest, as the promos say, contact me, and I'm here to listen. Thank you. Lost Inside is written and produced by me, Max Power. The music used in the show is from the song How Do You Do by Palais Royale, a band that has helped my daughter to deal with her mental health afflictions. I do not own the rights to any of the music used here. Thank you for listening, and until next time, to quote two wise dudes, be excellent to each other and party on.